The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.
Welcome to the Instructor Podcast. This is a show where we help you become an even more awesome driving instructor and run a better driving school. As always, I am your splendid host, Terry Cook. I'm delighted to be here, but even more delighted that you have chosen to listen because we are back with a special episode for you. I have decided to do something a bit different, and I put a link out to my Zoom scheduler and allowed people to book 15-minute sessions to come and record on whatever topic they wanted. And that's what we've got for you today. We are joined by two amazing people who have come on to talk about the thing they wanted to talk about. So today we are joined by Sellwood and Sarah Hall. So very different people, very different topics, but I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So just before we get stuck in though, I do want to point you in the direction of the Instructor Podcast Premium, because if you are enjoying these episodes, sign the Instructor Podcast Premium. There's loads more of this stuff. There's a massive variety and a massive back catalogue. At the risk of scaring you, there's over 200 hours worth of stuff over there. There's new stuff going on all the time, but it is a little bit different to what we put out in the public feed. We tend to go a bit more in-depth, a bit more of a deep dive on things. You also get these episodes early, so premium members will be listening to this now, 3 days before you do. But not just that. If you are enjoying the podcast, if you've been listening, especially if you've been listening for a while and you're getting used from it, why not just sign up and contribute £10 a month towards the podcast being run and being developed and being produced anyway? You are more than welcome to do that, even if you don't want to make use of all the content. The best place to go is the Instructor Podcast website, where you can find out more details. That's www.theinstructorpodcast.com. Or you can head straight to sign up. There'll be a link in the show notes for that. But for now, let's get stuck into the show. How are we doing, Kevin?
I'm fine, thanks very much, Terry. Good to see you again.
Oh, it's good to have you on board. When I put these up, you were the first person to jump on. And you gave me a really good description, the topic you wanted to cover. So what is it we're talking about today?
Well, I think really it's a case of, as I said to you, of sort of getting back into the swing of it. As you may, or you know, but other people probably don't know, that I ran what was called the XL podcast, EXEL, because I'm based down near Exeter in Devon. And a few things occurred sort of the second half of last year, which meant, I don't want to say I lost the enthusiasm for it, but things happened. We had a rather unfortunate situation with a family member, which I'm not going to go into. It's not very pleasant, I'm afraid. But then also my wife's brother died very suddenly in September. It was sudden because he was 85, but he'd won a golf tournament the day before. Then he had a ruptured aorta. Virtually nobody ever survives from them, and he lasted 4 days. So both of those things sort of deflated me a bit. And also I'd had a bit of trouble with a couple of people who were fairly, I wouldn't say they were awkward about coming on the podcast, but the platform they were trying to use, and it just didn't work. And I thought, oh, crikey, and then we went to Australia for 5 weeks, which was a much more pleasant thing to happen. But I knew that was coming as well. So things sort of drifted. And I thought I was at the test centre at some point, not that I go there very often because I only work 3 days a week now, and somebody said to me, when's the next episode? And I thought, oh, well, at the moment there isn't one. And I thought, well, why not? Let's use next year. And I've got to say things, I feel a bit more enthusiastic about doing it. We are taking on people, I don't want this to become a rant, taking on people from other training providers, shall I say, that are a little bit disappointed with what they're getting, or even not getting in some cases. So my whole sort of enthusiasm for things is coming back again. So I really I thought, well, if I use this to talk to you, the guru of Instructor Podcast, that it would get me fired up again as well.
Well, that last comment has got you an extra minute, so there you go. I think Do you know what? I'll be completely honest with this. One of the things that I find really difficult to manage, and I mean no offense to anyone when I say this, because I know they only ever say it with good intentions, is when people say, keep doing what you're doing or keep up the good work. I'm like, this is really hard.
Yes.
I don't want you to tell me to keep going. I want you to give me a hug and say it's going to be all right at the end. Because especially if you look at your perspective, you're creating this free resource for people.
Yes.
You don't earn anything from it. You know, it's great for us. You know, I'm not hiding the positives. It helps publicize stuff. It gets us in contact with people we may not have been in contact with before.
Yeah.
It's good promotion. You know, there's a lot of positives there, but there's a lot of work goes into it.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's free for everyone at point of use. And I think we've spoke about it before, actually, where you said you fell off the horse a bit before and you should have been recording, but you went out with your wife. And I remember saying to you, you've got a wife and family to go out with.
Yeah.
I ain't got a wife. I just got divorced at the time, and I'm sat all in my flat feeling sorry for myself. You know, there's two sides to every coin.
Yeah.
So do you think potentially you're almost being a bit harsh on yourself in that respect?
Yeah, I think it needs somebody like you to sort of say that. And like all of us, our industry in particular, we're so insular, really, that we go on and on doing what we do, and we don't know whether we're really doing it to the best of our ability or not. And until somebody comes along and says, well, yeah, that's great, or it's not, we don't really know. So I think that it was a selfish thing coming on here.
That's not a bad thing.
No, right. I knew you would sort of be saying the sort of things you are saying.
Well, I think the other thing to consider is the schedule of the podcast, because there's a reason why I do seasons. It's because I know that if I commit to doing, for example, one a week, I won't do it. Now, I tend to do 50 to 60 episodes a year anyway. Yeah. So in theory, I'm doing more than one a week. However, if I commit to one a week, that's too stressful for me. So how I tend to do it, I do my seasons, because I know I can go all in for 3 months, twice a year. And then I do loads of other bits around it. So I just wonder, is a schedule something you could consider? Fortnightly, monthly, ad hoc episodes?
That's where I started, because I did this originally for 2.5, 3 years ago, solely for people in this area, just to give them some support, because people, there were a lot of new ADIs, PDIs. There's still a lot, and that's another issue that does concern me a little bit, the quality of some of the information they get before they even start. But that's going to take us down another garden path if I'm not careful. But it's, I started off doing it fortnightly, which was easy. And then I sort of went up to weekly, which were, the thing about it is that you've got to be disciplined. You've got to have a structure. You've got to plan ahead. And if you do, and you go and ask people, I have had nobody ever say no to me. In fact, no, I have had one person, and that was due to personal circumstances, which I fully understood. But everybody says yes. Whether it's the instructor down the road from me, or whether it's Bob Morton, or Chris Benstead, everybody says yes. So that's the encouraging thing about it. I know that when I start again, I will have plenty of people who will be prepared to come and give their 2 penneth.
Well, you're doing better than me, because I've had at least 2 people say no, one of whom was the author, Matt Haig, and the other was Love Day Rider. So, see if you can get Love Day on.
Aim high.
Yeah. But,
or low, whichever way you want to put it.
Lillian Greenwood hasn't said no yet. She hasn't replied, admittedly, but she hasn't said no yet. So you never know.
She has written a very nice letter to my MP in reply to an inquiry I made, or some comment about test times and all this sort of thing. So at least I've had a reply from her in writing through a third party.
Well, let me throw an idea at you for the podcast, because I know initially, and I know it's kind of changed slightly a little bit over the years, but initially it was very much focused at your local area. Yeah. But one of the things I've seen you talk about online recently, and one of the things you put in the topic, and the thing you mentioned twice in the 7 minutes we've been recording so far, is about the misinformation. That feels like something you're quite passionate about at the minute.
Oh,
So
God, yeah.
could you, I'm not saying change the podcast, but you could almost do a mini series on quality control.
Yes.
Finds that thing that you're passionate about and care about.
Yeah, I think it pains me when I see the people on Facebook who are. It's not misinformation. It's lack of it. It's like when the parent comes to you and says, "Can we start driving lessons next week?" And it is very difficult not to stifle a laugh at that. But the thing is, they genuinely don't know the situation. People, if you've got no experience of driver training or learners and tests and the way it is, you just don't know. And people who ask about, can we do an intensive course? So that there is a lack of information out there. Now, I'm not saying I want to go down the road of parents. It's more the side of the training, but and it is people who don't know, or they're halfway through and they suddenly find they're in a contract that they didn't really read properly, and now they're trying to get out of it. And, I feel sad for them. There's a lot of criticism of some of the national providers. I was really encouraged, though, this morning when I read something that was the total opposite of people who are really praising some of the national providers. And in some parts of the country, clearly it is working well. So it's, you can't tar these people nationally with the same problem. Down here, you can. One of them has no trainer at all south of South Wales. Anybody from Bristol downwards has to go to South Wales for training, and they don't know that until they start. But it's, it is. I've that idea has been going through my mind as well. Why not do a series of things strictly sort of focused to helping people know what the information is or what they should know before they start?
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned about not tying everyone in the same brush, because I was with a national provider when I started, and
so was I.
Yeah, my trainer was really good. Look, I caveat this by saying it was just before the Part 3 changed. It was when you started the exam, that's the PSTs. That's the phrase I was looking for.
Yeah.
It was that. So there was a very different type of training, but I got on with a lot of what he did, and it was always there for me. And I won't mention the school. Screw it, I will do. We read driving school. They were really, really good for me. So
they're the ones who I've read about today, and people really praising them. There are one or two down here who are a little bit disappointed with what they're getting, but it's easy to criticise when you're not being in the situation, not being in the car. It's I want to be very careful about whether I really want to criticise somebody or not.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to ask you this question because it's something I spoke about recently with Chris Spencer on a Greenroom episode, which is gaps in training. Because if you're, let's say you took a year to train, let's just use that figure of a year, 12 months. You can't possibly cover everything in 12 months.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there'll be no need ever for CPD. So, yes, there's crucial things we have to get in. Obviously there's crucial things, but do you think that a lot of the gaps in trainings we hear about are gaps, or do you think it's just certain things that trainers prioritize over others?
Oh, that's a difficult question to answer, again, without seeing a particular trainer. I think it's probably a bit of both. I think there are some trainers out there who have not really invested in their own training to be able to train people to become instructors. And there are some gaps there. And I've spoken to one person recently. I said, do you know about the GDE matrix? Do you know about the national standards of driver and rider training? And I might have been on a different planet. And I think, all right, you don't talk about them specifically to learners or maybe even to instructor training, but somehow you incorporate those things into your training. And the trainers who don't even know about some of these things, I think, are really doing us a disservice. I know Mick Knowles and Lee Jowett are passionate about this go to a trainer who's invested in their own training as well, rather than somebody who thinks it okay just to start up as a trainer.
Yeah, I get that. But I look at the podcasts, not just podcasts, but YouTube channels, content within our industry. And while we've been talking, I'm thinking about it, and there's a lot of good stuff out there. But I think the thing that's missing at the minute is that information. It is that kind of technical aspect. Everyone's doing the interviews. This is what I do. So everyone's doing the interviews. Everyone's doing the mindset stuff and the standards check stuff. It's all around this. There's no one out there putting out this solid information. So
maybe there will be soon then.
Yeah. Even whether it's just.
I'll get that in quickly because I can see the timer going down.
don't give my secrets away. But no, there's whether it's just a mini series, or whether it's an ongoing thing, one a month, or whether it's ad hoc, and you could mix it in with other stuff. Yeah. But if you did that, you would be doing the thing that I preach about, which is something different. Yeah. I don't think anyone else, maybe some I've missed, but I don't think anyone else is doing that.
That might have been part of the thing that I'm doing the sort of same thing as everybody else. But, thank you for that. I'm glad I came on here now.
Oh, well, there you go. 14.5 minutes in, we got you glad you came on. That's not bad. Well, no, I'm pleased you come on with this topic, because I do think that it's people don't always realise what goes into these, and it's a free resource. And I'm glad that you took the time off you needed. I hope you had a good time while you were away as well in Australia and New Zealand. I've been once, an amazing place, but
I hated it. Couldn't wait to get back.
I don't believe that for a second. Have you got what you wanted from this 15-minute recording?
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Do you want to take a minute just to tell people where they can find you if they want more?
Well, yes, you will be able to find me on the Excel podcast. I'm not sure it's active at the moment, but it's going to be again very soon. So it's EXEL podcast. And there's plenty of past episodes there to go and look at, from the great and the good and the not so great and good. Or not so great, shall I say?
the great, good, and even me. But yeah. No, well, thank you for joining us.
I did make sure that when I looked at the categories on the Intelligent Instructor Awards, that I had voted for you, because all the other people on there I didn't know who they were anyway. So I'm not offending any of the usual suspects.
I will finish third in that award. That is my prediction now. But no, thank you for joining us today, Kevin. It's been a pleasure chatting to you.
And to you. Great to see you and catch up with you again soon.
So we're now joined by the wonderful Sarah Hall. How are we doing, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. How are you?
All the better for seeing your smiley face, obviously. And I've already said that to you once today, but there you go. But you filled in the little form that I get people to fill in when they're coming in for these slots. And your topic you want to talk about was everything, with, I believe it was 6 G's on the end. So let's talk about everything in 15 minutes. You up for it?
Well, we've tried this before, mate. I reckon we've done about a 4-hour unofficial podcast between me and you one. So yeah, good luck for 15 minutes.
I want to talk about what you're doing now, because you messaged me about coming on here and said you weren't sure what to talk about, but you wanted to come on. And I asked kind of where you're at, and you said you're not teaching learners anymore, but you're still obviously in the industry. So I want to know what you're up to now, because it's been too long since I've spoken to you, and B, we've not had you on the podcast already.
Yeah, it feels like it's been quite a while, doesn't it? So not teaching learners at the minute. I was finding with the other things that I was doing, it wasn't fitting in for me, but also it wasn't really ideal for them either. I need to be able to commit to them if I'm going to take people on. So I felt like that wasn't the right move at that particular time. So I'm doing some advanced driving stuff and some fleet training and that kind of thing. So I'm still doing that on road. But most of what I'm doing is working for car manufacturers, doing quite an array of things, really. So it can be anything from performance driving, precision driving stuff, racing myself, if you can call it that loosely, doing something like that on a track. And then doing a lot of training as well for the manufacturers. So it can be either their guests or their dealership network staff. So any new car launches coming out, new car tech, all that sort of stuff we cover and do training for them. So it's quite an array, which is great because I like variety. I can't sit in one place too long. But yeah, it's hectic as well.
I just want to ask a little bit about not working with learners anymore, because it's something
Yeah.
that I spoke about in my premium membership recently, that I did a recording with Dan Hill, and he was saying, take this opportunity to ask yourself, is this the right thing for you? So obviously it's not for you at the moment. So I suppose two-part question, was it hard stopping? And the second part is, do you reckon you'll come back to that aspect of it?
Was a very hard decision because it was a hell of a lot of work to get there. And achieving the ADI qualification was a stressful process, and it meant a lot to me. I worked really hard to get it. So to feel like I was failing or giving up wasn't a nice feeling. I don't process that feeling very well anyway, and beat myself up quite a lot about it. But in the end, it was the right decision at that moment in time. Career and personal reasons meant that it was the right decision, and I don't feel bad about it now, although there's definitely some elements I miss. There's some that I don't. Same with any job, I guess. But would I go back? Yeah. I'd definitely consider it. I want to keep that qualification there. I want to do some professional development and stuff. I'm always looking at avenues for that. I'm not giving up on it. It's just not the path that I need to be on right now.
I was about to go almost telling you off mode for beating yourself up, but you said you're over that now, so that's good. But
I'll try.
Yeah, I can imagine why that's difficult though. But you've got to do what's right for you in the long run, and part of what you said there is part two training. You know, I know that you're looking to do this with instructors and part two training. So I've said this before and I haven't done it, but you're someone I want to come to for some training around this thing. Obviously, I don't need to pass a part two, but for some training around the driving, because I think you've got quite a unique perspective of this with your background. So is there elements of that your background, the stunt driving, the racing, the precision driving, all this stuff that you bring into your training?
Yes and no. It's quite a difficult one to explain. I always find that because I think the impression that would give from the outset for the likes of maybe a young new driver's parents, for example, I don't really put that out there so much because it can have a negative attachment to it, because obviously the road is not the place to race and all those kind of good things. So it's understanding that I'm not directly bringing those elements into learner driving or even fleet driving and stuff. However, sort of underneath it all, without really labeling it, yes, there's definitely some elements of it in there, car control and the empathy for the controls of the car, why we would use the controls in a certain way. That's a really big part of it. And also planning and awareness side, because that's my bugbear out on the road anyway with a lot of drivers, and we can all improve that. But for anything precision, racing, motorsport, anything like that, you have to have fast reactions and you have to be thinking a few steps ahead of what's happening on a track, because everything's moving a lot faster. So you don't have any time to react to things like you might do on the road. So being able to see things in advance is a real benefit, I think, and hopefully I can try and pass a bit of that on, if nothing else.
Is there any specific part of that planning awareness, like a common theme, if you like, that you see from full license holders?
Things that they're not doing.
Yeah.
People just don't look far enough ahead generally, or anticipate what someone else is going to do. I think sometimes you can use a lot of clues on the road, or you can use a lot of clues with people's what I would say body language, but it's the language of the car that you can see, you know, which direction the wheel's facing. All those sort of little things that a lot of people tend to miss or potentially just kind of get a bit complacent with. There's a lot of things out there like that you can pick up on, and it sounds so simple when you're coaching, but actually by the end of the drive, you've got someone really looking for things. And just having that awareness means you've got loads more time to plan for an inevitable incident, because it's happening all the time. There's that many cars and people going that fast. So at least if you can save yourself from someone else's mistake, it's better than nothing.
Yeah. I think it's interesting you referred to it as body language of the car, because I do that. I call it body language. And it's not right, but you can't call it car language. That sounds
Yeah,
even
it doesn't
worse.
make any sense.
But I think that it's almost where instructors have that sixth sense. You know, they can sense what another car's going to do, but they don't necessarily know why. I think it's the body language of the car, because if we look at when we're around other people, we get that feeling around someone, and it's often the body language of that person. It's just a subtle thing, and it's the same with cars. Am I right there, do you think?
Definitely, totally agree with that. I think it's not even necessarily one thing. It's probably a whole cluster of small things that individually don't mean a lot, but it just gives you that vibe about the driver and what they're doing and their attitude. You can pick up a lot of that sometimes. And that's the same on the track as well. You can get that intention from somebody, whether they're going to be aggressive, whether they're going to be quite tame with you, whether they're going to let you through, whether they're going to try and shunt you off the track when they overtake you. You can get a vibe off people quite easily the more you do it. So I think it's really important to understand that.
Are you an aggressive driver on the track?
Nowhere near enough, no. I try, because you have to be. You have to be aggressive to be able to race. But there's a line between aggressive and fair and hard driving and holding your line and not letting people push their way through. And then also, same as on the road, you get punished if it's an incident. You've got a racing license, they'll put points on it, they can disqualify you, all that kind of stuff. So you do have to be careful. I'm relatively new to competition racing, really. So I'm fairly tame as far as the scale of aggressive racing drivers goes. I'm very tame, but it's just learning every time you go out, looking at those sort of things and being a bit braver and just trying to push the boundaries a bit without being an unfair driver. It's hard work.
I'm not the biggest motorsport fan, but I used to really like Formula One, and I don't anymore. I find it quite dull now, if I'm being honest. But I used to love it
too, and that's from a racing driver. So.
There you go. Well, there's no overtaking anymore. That's the issue. Anyway, another topic. We'll put that on the side. But I don't know. I always think back to Michael Schumacher, because he was the biggest advocate for improving safety and putting in harsher rules. But he always said, as long as the rule is here, I will drive to this point. Even though I'm campaigning it for it to be changed, I'll use it while it's there. So I just wondered where you're on that. So aggressive, but not aggressive enough. Interesting.
Basically. Yeah, when you get up to those sort of levels, the real professional levels, you have to be very aggressive. The only way to survive. I'm doing clubman level stuff, so I've got leeway really to be as not aggressive or as aggressive as I want, and that will determine how part of my racing career goes, really.
Does that help when you're driving through city centre at rush hour?
You know what? Yes and no, because realistically, it's a completely different environment. And there's definitely an element of security that you feel in a race car. I've got full safety cage, helmet, all that sort of stuff. And even then, you are out there feeling like, well, I don't want to do that because that's a brick wall and that might hurt, or that's another car and that might hurt. That is in the back of your mind. On the road, it's just a totally different vibe. I think I can deal with it calmer now on the road, I would say, because I can deal with actually quite a high stress situation on a track. Stress on the road is not the same stress anymore. Like that as a driver, I think on the road, in a really stressful situation, that's usually the max stress you're going to get as a driver, is those horrible situations with traffic and horrible drives and everything else. Whereas when you race, it's like, stress is up here somewhere. So now this one feels okay. I feel like I can just deal with that calmly.
I will pick your brains about this properly another time, but I want to ask you about, I think it was the Caribbean, or was it Africa you were recently doing? Tell me about that.
Yeah, just over a year ago, I went to do some rallying in Barbados, as you do.
Yeah.
So I've got a contact, pal of mine who came over here from Barbados to do some rallycross when I worked with the championship in the UK. So we kept in touch, and he was basically bringing this event to life, which is the Barbados Rally Carnival. So it was 2 weeks of just motorsport, rum, and a bit more rum. And yeah, it was brilliant. He said, "Do you want to come over and do it?" Obviously, I'll say yes to that. So yeah, myself and an Irish girl, Tony, we went over and we shared a car and we'd competed doing different events separately as drivers, and then we came together and did a rally. So that was my first ever rally event, and I did the navigating and she did the driving, and it was a full day, no aircon, full suits. We were nearly passing out by the end of it, but the rum and the beach at the end of the day made it all worth.
What is rally driving? What's the definition, if you like?
So I mean, it's all about stages and times. It depends on there's different rally events. We've got not got time for that today, but there's different events. But generally, rallying is a mix of tarmac and loose surface racing. In a nutshell.
I mean, as well, that sounds like almost like an opportunity of a lifetime. It sounds pretty amazing. If someone says, "Do you want to go to Barbados and do some rally driving?" How awesome was it?
Oh, I can't even describe it. I'm still on a high now. If I look back at the pictures, I actually almost feel emotional about it because it was just such an incredible experience with some amazing people. And I'm very aware how incredibly lucky I am to have that opportunity. So I'm very, very grateful for it. And it's something I wouldn't have done had I not known Greg and he invited me over. So yeah, incredible.
I just think that when you think of driving as a career, and I know we're not driving as a career, but it's within that same sort of bracket, we don't think of these opportunities, and then some stuff like this comes along. I think it's awesome. But I know you recorded a video of your time over there. Where can people find that?
So if you just search for the Barbados Rally Carnival on YouTube, obviously it was 2023. I think about that then. 2023, and there'll be various videos. There's some behind the scenes stuff on there as well. In my own page, Sarah Hall Motorsport should link to it as well, so you'll get to see all of the shenanigans.
I'll put link in the show notes. But what's next? What's next for you?
I don't know, and that's scary, but also I like that because I don't have a set path right now. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. There's lots of doors that I can't even see the doors yet. Never mind open them. I don't know they're there in what I'm doing at the moment with manufacturers and stuff. So yeah, I don't know is the answer, but that's a good thing, I think.
But this will be listened to by PDIs and by ADIs. So if they want to come to you for some Part 2 training, where's the best way to get in touch with you?
So I've got Teesside Driving Academy on the usual socials, or you can find the Sarah Hall Motorsport on all of the socials as well. Just drop me a message on any of them, not a problem. If I can help anyone out, even just with some advice, then I will.
Excellent. Well, I'll put links to that in the show notes. But a big thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me again.
The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.